we all have those moments where we stop and wonder, why do I keep doing that? Or what's really important to me? Or maybe why do I keep running in circles? In many ways, life gets busy and it's very easy to lose track of what's going on in our own heads. Cipher is an attempt to be your cognitive companion, to help offload some of this quote-unquote responsibility, to help connect the dots and see the bigger picture, such that you can understand yourself a bit better. And Cipher attempts to do that by not just tracking what you do, but it tries to also understand how you think and feel about it. At its heart, it's a journaling tool, but it comes with a twist. It's not just recording the sentences and words that you capture, but it tries to decipher the information within to find out if there are any correlations leading to causations, or maybe not, and present back these perspectives and insights to you to help you make some informed decisions. Getting started is very easy. Once you've signed up and signed in, you're greeted by this central orb. And there is a tiny little notification on this settings icon, which says there is an action required of me, and it's asking me to create some goals. Let's see what happens if I click on this. You may be wondering, why does the system need to know about my goals, and isn't this supposed to be a journaling app? Fair point, but the point of Cipher, as I mentioned before, is to understand the bigger picture and try to connect the dots. The system tries to understand your objectives. The system tries to understand what's important for you in your life, in your timeline, so that when you journal anything, it tries to correlate if what you've recorded relates to one or multiple goals that you've informed the system, and it creates smart categories or collections, which obviously helps in search and filtering and all of those nuances, but most importantly, it helps the system get richer context about you and tries to learn the different patterns that are very intricate for yourself. And it forms what we call as context. I'm going to talk a little bit more about context further on, but the point with goals is for Cipher to organize your content, improve your search results, and enhance your overall experience. On that note, let's get started and create our first goal. At any point in time, if you'd like to know what is the point of these goals, this little information icon will come handy. Let's try to create a first goal, and let's use a goal that a lot of us can relate to. Maybe we'll say better work-life balance. The next thing is for Cipher wants to understand your description of this goal so that it doesn't make any assumptions on your behalf. Let's go with something simpler and say my description of this goal is just really to find that sweet spot where you're not constantly stressed about work and actually have some time for things that a person enjoys. And the next thing Cipher wants to understand is basically the criticality of this goal in your timeline. You can go with low, medium, or high. I'm going to go with medium for now. And the system now wants to understand what are some of the short-term objectives, in your own opinion, that you want to achieve so that you get closer to this desired goal. For the sake of demo, let's go with something like no work emails after dinner. And you can obviously add as many short-term objectives as you see fit. And the next thing the system wants to understand is your medium-term objectives. Short and medium, these are all very relative to every individual, so please go with your own timeline. And medium-term objective here obviously means what, in your opinion, is relatively medium-term actions that you would like to take so that you can get closer to this desired aspiration / goal. So I'm going to go with something like at least 3 hours each week to an activity free of digital devices. What happens then is Cipher is your cognitive companion, and it attempts to be of help every step along the way. In this case, it is trying to finesse the goal that you had entered, and it's also giving information of why it thinks each of these statements can be reworded with an objective of getting maximum out of the platform. So in this case, there was a short-term objective which I said no work emails after dinner, and it's tried to reword that to stop checking work emails after dinner to increase relaxation and personal time. And I can also click on this information icon to understand why Cipher thinks this reword was necessary or what was its rationale behind rewording. So in this case, I can choose to apply the suggestions, or I can choose to keep my own original content, or I can also choose to refresh to get a newer version of suggestions. In this case, I'll go with the suggested version. I'm gonna save my code. That's it. I'm ready to use the platform now, and I've recorded the goal, which is auditable at any point in time, so I can click here and understand what is the goal that I just created. Now, let's see how Cipher works day to day. It all starts with a simple journal entry. Just jot down what happened, whatever is on your mind, how you're feeling, whatever is relevant to you. Cipher prompts you to think about how your day connects to your goal. It's about being a bit more mindful about your choices. So, to create a journal entry, click on that icon and you're greeted by this form which is asking you to capture a title for what you're about to record. So I'm going to say, this is my daily reflection. And then I have a markdown editor. I can be as descriptive as I choose to be and use all the markdown features here. I have the live preview for your benefit. For the sake of this demo, I'm going to say something like this. It was a long day at work, I feel totally drained, and skip my evening walk to answer emails. So let's use some of these markdown features. And the last thing the system wants to know about this journal is any tags that you want to associate. So let's say this was my reflection. Just going to record that, leave it at that, and complete my journal entry. That's about it. You can create as many journals about any domains that are relevant to you in your life, be it work, hobbies, relationship, ideas, anything that is relevant to you in your timeline. Now you've played your part, and Cipher gets to work. There are a few little things that I want to point in this journal entry card over here. The first item is it's categorized that this particular journal entry relates to or resonates with a goal that you had created earlier, which said better work-life balance. And this little indicator here says that the mood or sentiment of this journal entry was somewhat negative. And there are a few tags that we had recorded. I recorded only one tag, and the system has recorded a few more tags by assessing the information. So I can click on this journal entry and see that it's got some metadata associated, which includes the weather at the time of writing, the emotional tone, any different categories or goals that are related to this journal entry or the system thought relates to this journal entry. These are your own tags. And Cipher has generated some more tags as it sees fit. And if there were any other entries that were related or had cosine similarity to the contents of your current journal, they all appear here. So all of this is, again, meant to promote or facilitate knowledge management and make it as simple and as easy as possible. So you can obviously edit the content if you choose to and save that information. That's journals. And the next part is where things start getting tricky. With context, here's where Cipher does something pretty cool. It automatically groups your entries and creates certain themes or areas of your life where it is trying to learn or upscale its knowledge about you. And it's not trying to make any assumptions. Let's see what Cipher has tried to understand about the user from their single journal entry of daily reflection. In this case, this card says that this is the latest context that it has about the user, and there is some metadata over here, and it says that there was one journal entry that inspired this, and there were not really any other similar perspectives because we started with a blank slate. This is the very first journal that we had created, and if there were any other similar perspectives, that gets recorded over here as well. So let's explore this context and see what we have. So with context, as you see, there is this source journal that has influenced creation of this context. And Cipher has tried to understand about you from the little information that you recorded, and it tries to be both qualitative and quantitative about this, so that at any point in time you can intervene and correct the system if it's making some wrong assumptions, or if it's learning the wrong thing about you, or if you meant something in a different sense, but the system has tried to connect different dots. So you are always in control, and the system tries to be as transparent as possible. So there's both qualitative and quantitative evidence for what the system knows about you at a point in time, And there is this tiny little network view which confirms how this context was derived. So this context was derived from this journal that we had created, and if there were any other similar journals to the current journal that influences the context, they get grouped here, and they also get considered holistically in forming the knowledge about you, the user, in form of these contexts. And these contexts contribute to insights. I'm going to talk about insights in a little bit. So holistic analysis is Cipher's attempt to group all the semantically related documents and assess them holistically to extract information and create knowledge. This knowledge is intended to decipher any correlations, obvious or not so very obvious, and identify if they're leading to any causations. For example, you might be skipping gym very frequently and you could be saying that I'm feeling a lot more frustrated. This could be an obvious example, but the system goes above and beyond to try and find such connections and lay it out to you, the user, to make that informed decision. And like with context summary, holistic analysis is also both qualitative and quantitative. It tries to be as transparent as possible so that the user can make an informed decision at any point in time. And for the last time, let's see about contexts. Contexts are not directly editable. Contexts are influenced by the input sources. In this case, they're primarily journals. And if there are any contexts that are semantically related, they all get grouped together and considered holistically. And related contexts are identified using cosine similarity in our backend systems. And the last section here, probably the most important section, is what we call as the insights. And these are meant to be actionable entries that, as your cognitive companion, Cipher, the tool, is suggesting that it has discovered some of these elements that if you are able to action, it thinks you can get closer to your desired goals or objectives. So in this case, it's pointing out that there are 3 insights that it's able to extract based on the context that the system has learned about you from that single journal entry that you had created. And just like with context cards, journal cards also have some metadata associated. So we can see here that this insight was influenced by one context, which is this one right here. And it also suggests if there were any other similar insights that share similar patterns. And these metadata items will help you understand if there are any points in your timeline that deserve a lot more attention than others. So if there are a lot of similar insights that the system is recording time and again, you might want to look into that because the system thinks that's an area of your life you'll probably want to dedicate a little bit more time, effort, and energy into. So with that, let's try and see what these insight cards are about. If I can expand this, get a little more insight into this insight, pun intended. So the nice part, or the interesting part about these insights, in my opinion, is you can interact with that insight. So as a cognitive companion, Cipher is trying to identify certain actionable insights, but it's not one-way traffic. You can interrogate the system. You can ask the system, why does it think this is an insight that you need to invest your time, effort, or energy into? You can basically inquire about why the system has landed on that particular conclusion so that it feels like it's bi-directional. You have a real virtual cognitive companion. So there's all of these cards, which you can obviously click and try to get a bit more understanding. And the actionable part of this insight is in this action framework, it says implement a cognitive restructuring technique to address the emotional exhaustion and work-life imbalance. That all sounds cool, but let's say I don't know what is cognitive restructuring. I can ask Cipher through this Insight Explorer. So I'm going to say, what do you mean by cognitive restructuring in your action framework? How do I get started? So I can ask this question and let the system come back to me with some more details on why it's landed on that conclusion. So if you can see here, it confirms that it's a technique aimed at modifying negative or unhelpful thoughts and patterns, and it's got some very brief but understandably relevant information here, which might not be totally throw away or brush off. So I also asked, how do I get started? So it's also given me some information on how to get started. And you can keep digging further, keep inquiring until you get comfortable or until you buy into this idea of what Cipher is suggesting as part of this insight. And just like with context, there's a lot of transparency here in why this insight was generated. The contributing sources to this insight was this context. You can click on that and obviously navigate to the context page that we saw previously. So one last time, what are insights? Insights in Cipher world is cognitive augmentation, where the system functions as an extension of your cognitive process, analyzing your own inputs and trying to uncover any latent patterns and draw non-obvious connections. In simple terms, it's a cliched word, but it's trying to be a second brain in whatever capacity possible to help you offload some of the cognitive responsibilities and understand any latent patterns and non-obvious connections. That's the key here. Of course, life isn't just about one thing. Cipher lets you track different goals and areas of your life all in one place. You might have goals about your hobbies, your career, your ideas, your relationships, whatever matters to you. Each goal gets its own set of contexts, so you can see how things are going in different parts of your life. The objective is to see the bigger picture without getting overwhelmed. So to get things going, I've created a few more goals for the sake of this demo. We started with better work-life balance. I've got one more called health and well-being with a few objectives, and another one called learn new skills with some objectives. And I've gone ahead and created some journal items as well. We started off with this one item called daily reflection. So I said I've created one more where I've signed up to learn Spanish, and another which said that Spanish is hard and I'm not progressing much. And I created one more journal which says that I tried yoga at the gym in this morning and going to try to go twice a week. So these are journals that are part of different domains, and the system is trying to build context without combining apples and oranges together, just like how the human brain works, where it's compartmentalizing different segments of information without losing the holisticity of each of those knowledge segments. So for example, I might be saying that Spanish is hard in one journal, and I might be creating another daily reflection where I might be saying I'm really tired and sluggish today. So on a tired and a sluggish day, trying to learn a new language might not be the best of ideas because you're not your sharpest self. So the system tries to decipher these kind of latent, non-obvious information and tries to present that to not be in the driver's seat, but be your cognitive companion. That's the objective. Can't stress that enough. So there are more contexts that we've now established. And as you can now see, there is this context which is derived from a journal, and it's identified there are two other journals that are similar to this journal influencing this context. And this context in itself has got three contexts that are very similar to each other. And the context summary here is specific to the journal that is influencing this context. However, holistic analysis is considering everything holistically, and it is trying to create or weave the story or narration or knowledge about you, the user, and it's trying to be both qualitative and quantitative about that, trying to lay that to you, the user, and be as transparent as possible. And like before, these contexts all lead to own set of insights. And now you see that this insight is influenced by 4 contexts that have influenced this or shaped this insight. And there are 3 other insights that are very similar to what Cipher is trying to suggest in this particular insight here. And like before, you can click into that and interrogate, investigate, inquire, and you can choose to accept or reject. You're always in the driver's seat. Cipher isn't trying to get bossy here. It's just trying to suggest that this is what the system thinks that you could be doing to get closer to your set goal. And if this is obvious and if this is something that you're smashing already, just go ahead and create a new context or a new journal and inform the system that you're doing this already so that it learns and you will get better recommendations going forward. The objective of the system is to identify non-obvious and latent patterns. That's Cipher for you folks. And it isn't about any quick fixes or any magic solutions. It's about taking a little time each day to reflect, understand yourself better, and make those small changes that add up over time. Please remember, it's your personal space to explore what matters to you at your own pace, and the system tries to be as transparent as possible. And the system tries to be as transparent as possible in laying the information that it has learned about you, and it is working hard to make you better in whatever is important for you in your own timeline. That Cipher, beta access are now available.